Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to get into something really cool. The story behind a productivity app that was actually built for the neurodivergent brain. It's this awesome deep dive into how you can design tech with empathy right from the start. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so let's start with this really big question. You'd think that if you have something like ADHD or dyslexia, a to-do list app would be, your ultimate sidekick, right? But for so many people, they just become another source of stress. They get downloaded, used for a day, and then abandoned. So what's going on there? Well, the answer really boils down to this one key concept: cognitive load.
So what is cognitive load? Think of it like this. It's all the mental energy you have to spend just to figure out how to use a tool before you even start doing the thing you wanted to do. And for a lot of neurodivergent folks, most apps, with all their endless buttons, complicated lists, and different inputs, they just demand way too much effort right out of the gate. It's like you're exhausted before you've even added your first task. It leads to total burnout. And this is what brings us to what the report calls the productivity paradox. It's this crazy situation where the very tools that are supposed to make your life less stressful end up doing the exact opposite. And here it is. This is really the heart of the problem. Think about it. To use an app that helps you get organized, you pretty much have to already be organized. You're expected to categorize things, prioritize them, and navigate this visually messy screen. It's a system that's demanding a ton of executive function, which ironically is the very thing that can be a real struggle for someone with ADHD. So, how do you get out of this paradox? Well, the engineers behind this app, which is called VoiceTasks, they decided to just flip the whole thing on its head. They came up with a voice-first solution. Their whole mission was, I think, pretty radical, but also super simple. They asked, what if accessibility wasn't just some feature we add on at the end? What if it was the entire foundation of the app? And by going voice first, the idea was to completely sidestep the biggest pain points. All that typing, clicking through menus, and trying to organize things visually, just bypass all of it. And just so you know, this wasn't some casual thing they threw together. I mean, look at this. They followed a super rigorous 8-phase engineering lifecycle. This whole structured process, from the very beginning all the way to launch, was absolutely critical to make sure that every single decision they made supported that core mission of accessibility. Okay, so let's get into the design. What does it actually mean to build an interface that's designed specifically for the brain? This comparison right here tells the whole story. On the left, you've got your typical app, right? It's jam-packed with text, visually cluttered, and loaded with features, what the engineers call dust accumulation, which is basically just feature bloat. But on the right, you see their calm design philosophy. We're talking tons of white space, almost zero distractions, and really smooth, gentle animations that help you focus instead of just grabbing your attention. And this commitment to design goes way deeper. We're talking right down to the shape of the letters on the screen. See, for readers with dyslexia, the font you choose isn't just about what looks nice. It's a huge deal. It's about legibility and seriously reducing visual stress. So they were super intentional about the fonts they used. Take OpenDyslexic. It has these really heavy bottoms on the letters, which is a clever way to help your brain tell the difference between tricky look-alike letters, like B and D. And then there's this other amazing technique they used called Bionic Reading. It bolds the first couple of letters in each word. This gives your eyes these little anchor points to latch onto, so your brain can almost surf across the text instead of getting stuck trying to decode every single letter. It's pretty genius. And to make sure the text didn't feel all squished together, they followed these really strict accessibility guidelines. First, the space between lines is at least 1.5 times the font size. Then, the space between letters gets opened up to help you tell characters apart. And finally, the space between words is also widened. Now, these might just seem like numbers, but what they're really doing is creating visual breathing room. And that makes a massive difference in cutting down the mental strain for the reader. All right, so that's the design. But what about the tech that's actually making all of this work? Let's look under the hood. Okay, the magic here is really in how it captures tasks. You can just talk to it. Like a normal person, you can say, hey, remind me to buy groceries tomorrow at 5 p.m. And that's it. The app uses on-device AI, this is what Apple calls its Apple Intelligence, to listen, understand what you said, pull out the key details, and boom, it creates a perfectly structured task. The best part? It's all happening on your phone, so it's super fast, totally private, and you don't have to type a single thing. Now, to make all that magic happen, the team had to make a really big decision. They chose to build the app natively, using Apple's own programming language, Swift. Now, this is definitely not the easiest path, but it was the only way they could get that buttery smooth performance, that deep connection with the iPhone's own reminders and calendar, and most importantly, direct access to all those powerful accessibility tools built right into the system. So here's a quick peek at the technical guts of the app. They use something called MVVM architecture, which is just a clean way to keep the code from becoming a tangled mess. For saving your tasks, they used Swift Data, which is a modern and really reliable database. To sync up with your iPhone's calendar and reminders, they used EventKit. And to make sure the app didn't crash, they used Xtest for some serious, non-stop testing. Every single piece of tech here was picked for one reason: to give the user a super stable and dependable experience. So, what's the big takeaway here? This whole project gives us some really powerful lessons in what the report calls inclusive engineering. This quote right here. This is it. This is the main idea. Because they zeroed in on the very specific needs of neurodivergent users, they actually ended up creating a tool that was just better, more functional, more focused, and way more inclusive for everyone. That's what happens when you design for the merchants. And this really gives us a blueprint for anyone who wants to build more empathetic tech. The lessons are pretty clear. Number 1, accessibility isn't a feature, it's your foundation. Build it in from day one. 2, go native when you can. Use the best tools to get that deep system integration. 3, on-device AI is the future, especially for privacy and performance. And finally, you have to test, and test again. Rigorous, iterative testing is the only way to guarantee a rock-solid experience. And that leaves us with this one big question to chew on. The story of this one app, it's not really just about a single piece of software, right? It's proof that this approach works. And it really makes you stop and think, what would our digital world feel like if all technology was built with this kind of empathy, right from the very start?